Well, we're waiting for the Q video. Q video. I wonder if that'll work.
Our station now features Q, a technology enabling us to display text and images about your brand on vehicle dashboards. These visual cues can appear during programming and when your radio ad airs. Listeners love seeing cues. Just like they look for the song title and artist information, they crave details about advertisers they hear on the radio. Here's how Q works and looks. Ad syncs visually echo your radio commercial. And as it airs, a brief message appears on screen. This makes your ad more memorable and effective. In fact, research shows an average increase of 63% in awareness of ads with a visual display. Sponsorship cues appear on screen without any commercial audio during our programming content. They associate your brand with the best of our station, keeping your brand top of mind in our community. Sponsorship cues are very memorable and can give you thousands of impressions each month. Already, 80% of vehicles on the road today can display text on the dashboard, and that number is going up each year. And for the 20% of vehicles on the road that can display both text and an image, we'll present your logo at no additional charge. Q provides a positive experience for listeners and powerful visual reinforcement for your brand because our listeners can now see your radio advertising. Interested and want to learn more about how Q can help your business? Let's talk about what Q can do for you.
Fantastic. Great intro for the first day one of Radio Week 2023. Delighted to have all of you, wherever you are in the world, watching this session. You're going to learn so much about a new technology, about how our world is changing, and how listeners who spend so much time in their cars in many parts of the world, and it still remains radio's most valuable day part. It's where we charge the most. It's where we have the greatest amount of active listening to the radio. So it's really a critical part of radio stations, a very critical part of audiences. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Many radio stations, unfortunately, failing to recognize the opportunities that are being created by the fact that your car dashboard doesn't just have a small FM tuner like it did for most of my life growing up. It now has a huge screen console. It's like one that you can play video games on. It's one where you can watch live football games on. I just watched, guys, I'm not sure if you saw this, but in my feed yesterday on LinkedIn, BMW showed how Bundesliga games can be watched on your screen live. Fortunately, they insist it only starts when the car is stationary. The rest of the time, the screen's black and you can listen to the commentary. But that's what's now possible. Are radio stations taking advantage of what these screens can do for us? I fear that maybe most are not doing that. And that's why we have this particular panel here, starting off our radio week. This is day one. We're going to understand all the possibilities that a dominant dashboard screen offers to radio stations. And I'm joined by Steve Newbury, the CEO of Q Interactive, who's also the sponsor. Thank you, Steve. Rudiger Landgraf, the Chief Strategy Officer of Kronehit Austria. Tina Murley, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of Beasley Media Group. Thank you for joining us, Tina. And Clay Walker was meant to be here, Director of Programming Operations at Odyssey. Unfortunately, Clay can't make it. So Rudiger, you'll be talking twice as much as you were previously going to.
I'll do my best.
Great. That's all we ask for. Let me start with you, Rudiger. The dominant roles of screen in the car dashboard. How has that meant that you, as a strategy officer at Kronehit, are thinking differently about your audience in the car?
Yeah, I mean, it's always when something new comes around, is it friend or is it foe? And of course, like always, it's both. So coming with the big screens in the car is always a bigger kind of entertainment variety for the audience, like streaming services, direct access to podcasts and so on, but still also the linear radio. So the first thing that's important to us is that it has to be a visual and an audio experience. So the most easy thing actually is to do something like to put your logo in a proper way, and you won't believe how many stations don't do that. So my first advice is, if you don't do that, because it's the first thing that helps you a little bit and increase your branding. Second thing then would be to include the cover flow, include albums, which is a little more tricky because you have to bring the albums to it. Some cars have their own way of matching album art. I drive a Tesla myself, and I have to say they did a lousy job, and now they changed it to TTS AutoStage, so it's a lot better now with the new software. So sometimes you are, I would say, in God's hands when it comes to that. So you can control the entire experience as much as you want to. And the third thing that's important is typically there is also a bigger abundance of radio stations, because nowadays the tuners combine FM, some markets also AM, and also, of course, DAB and DAB Plus or HD radio in the States into one giant list. And you have to cut through this noise. And so you have to be very specific to give your audience a chance to be able to explore your station. And if you call it like any generic name, it's not so easy to get that. So a direct product proposal in the brand name would be helpful as well.
Well, there's lots more that we're going to talk about, but I want to get to you, Steve, and ask, you clearly saw the opportunity when you saw these screens emerging in cars. You knew that there was much more that could be done for radio stations. I mean, the risk for all of us who were running radio was, would this be the rise of television in cars? That was kind of this scary idea. If we think about a future where you don't have to drive anymore, self-driving cars, etc., people don't need just the audio. And that's going to displace these businesses that have been developed over centuries. But you saw the opportunity and you developed something. Tell us more about what this is and how it works.
I did see the opportunity, and part of my background before I joined Q, I am a broadcaster in the States, and I also worked with the National Association of Broadcasters as their executive vice president. And I had the lead between the automotive industry in the US and the broadcasters here. Clearly, there were evolving technologies that radio needed to take advantage of. We had RDS and HD, and we just weren't taking full advantage of that. And there's so much more that's coming. You mentioned the DTS Auto Stage. What a fabulous technology that is. And radio needs to be there. And I was excited about it when I was asked to join. I did not create the Q technology. I came on board after it had been created, but we've tried to push it to a different level because we really do want broadcasters understanding we're not a one-dimension service anymore. Radio can be much more visual, can be much more engaging. And what Rudiger said is exactly right. He outlined the station logo and then the artist information. And then there's a lot more content that we're beginning to promote that we'll be talking about. So broadcasters, radio broadcasters can't just sit and define us as audio any longer. Apple, Spotify, Pandora, so many of our competitors, the satellite companies, so many of our competitors are doing visualization. We have to do that to not just keep up, but exceed the expectations of our listeners.
And I think that's probably a mix of both on the content side and on the revenue side, right? There's potential
Absolutely.
for new revenue streams, which is where, Tina, you come in, Chief Revenue Officer. Why are you sitting here? People might be saying, hang on, is this a content proposition? Well, it's more than a content proposition. There are opportunities to make more money. Tell us a bit about that particular potential.
Absolutely. Radio is over 100 years old, so it's very rare that we have new technology to sell that advertisers are excited about. And this is a technology they are really excited about. We often have advertisers calling us and asking us how they can get on the dashboard, which is really exciting. At Beasley alone, we've done close to $2 million in revenue already this year. And basically what it is we sell it as sponsorship. So it's a share of voice, if you will, like on your dashboard. So we'll have a pyramid sponsor. So you have a content sponsor. So we'll actually air during the content of your show a message. It's almost like a studio naming sponsorship on air, but it's on your dashboard. Advertisers love it because it's closest to the point of purchase. You have your visual on there. It also tremendously increases brand lift. And it's great for live local community service. We've often used this even for PSA campaigns when we had that horrible hurricane down in Fort Myers, or during COVID, we would use PSA messaging out to the community. So it's not only great for revenue, it's great for community outreach, and it's really great for recall for our advertisers.
So can you give us a clear example, practically, as people are watching from wherever they are in the world? How do you actually sell this? So we're normally used to selling 30-second spots. We're selling solutions for advertisers. What is the add-on? How do you do this? What are the words? What's the language?
Great question. We have three ways of selling this technology. One is ad sync. So if you have your traditional 30-second advertisement on the air, your audio message, we can sync the visual cue with that audio message. So while you're hearing a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, you can actually see the Dunkin' Donut logo. with whatever offer, 99-cent lattes or what have you, on the screen. So that's probably the lowest level of doing it, but we also sell it as a sponsorship in day part. So an advertiser could be a day part sponsorship of Morning Drive. And the way that works is when the DJ's on there talking about, latest trends, or when there's music playing, we will actually rotate out album art, station logos, and an advertiser message. Then we also have top of the hour sponsors. So every top of the hour, it's like a studio sponsorship. We will have that advertiser there. It's really important, and I think Steve will probably expand on this a little bit. It's really important that it is done with the branding of the station, and it's not done so pervasively that it's a turnoff. So that we don't want one advertiser up there 24 hours a day, because it can get a little stale and it can get confusing. So we'll rotate it out with the branding, with that advertiser message, so that it's in there, and almost like a promo on a radio station, if you will. Like it's a reminder, it's there. It's great branding, but it's not up all the time that it, takes away from what we're doing as a radio station.
So is your rate card changed? You now have a rate card that says you can buy a radio spot, but you can also buy Radio Plus.
Yes.
What
So
do you call
the
it?
AdSync technology, that's a great question. The AdSync technology, we tend to have an add-on. So it will be our rate plus 10%, if you will, to have the visual cue. But the other sponsorships that I was describing, those are just straight, incremental revenue that we're bringing to the radio station. So it has nothing really to do with the radio spot. It's an extra revenue source. And many times we'll see marketers will pull revenue from their digital budget, from their outdoor budget. So these are budgets that are not coming from radio budgets, they're coming from other media. So it's a great way for radio to really take a larger share of the pie, the revenue pie, because we're taking it from other budgets.
Tina, now you've said something that's got anybody watching super excited. We're taking budgets for other people. They've stopped taking from us, hopefully. This is great to hear. Those of you who are watching wherever you are in the world, just remember that you can ask questions as we go along. At a particular point, I'll be seeing your questions pop up, whichever screen you're using, whether you're on YouTube or you're on StreamYard, send them through. I see them. I'll pop them in during the discussion or maybe towards the end. So feel free to ask the questions that I haven't asked. So far, Tina's been very kind. She said, I've asked great questions twice, but maybe that's my limit. I think I've hit my ceiling. So we're going to need more of you, wherever you are, to send us your questions, because then I'll look smart as well. But don't worry, I will attribute it to you. Let's get back to you, Steve, and talk about the content side. So Tina's given us some great insight on how you can make this into a proper revenue generator that people see is valuable. It actually works. It emphasizes or enhances the messaging that's already happening in audio form. What can we do as content people? How do you make us radio people look like we belong on a screen, native to that new medium? Let's call it that.
Well, I always begin by saying the listener experience is the most important consideration we all have to make, whether you're on the advertising side or the programming side. It has to be a positive listener experience. We don't want to be creating a technology that alienates the listeners, makes it confusing for them, makes it fatiguing for them. So the way to do that is by having the proper placement and not oversaturation with one client or a couple of clients, but having a good balance. But the other thing is really stressing to the operations team, the programmers. Think about programming your dash. Think about programming your messaging. And that can be everything from the creativity of messaging during the holiday season. We had one client that was posting a message that said, "Thanks for listening to us while you're looking for a parking space." Because they realized on a Saturday afternoon, everybody's out at the shopping malls looking for a parking place. Just something that could bring a brief smile, much that listener connection that radio always prides itself on. But Tina alluded to this earlier. It's also a really effective tool in emergency situations. You can put weather bulletins there if there were to be a tornado or flood warning or some type of weather alert. Beasley in particular did a great job during COVID, where they put messages up across all of their stations. One of our features is you can message to all of your stations or each individual station simultaneously. So group owners have the ability for some real strong control, but they went in and said across all of our stations, everything they had in the States, they wanted to put COVID messaging in. They wanted to put messaging that said, stay safe, stay 6 feet apart. We're all in this together. So it really brings the emotional connection of what the listener has always expected. Radio is a very personal medium. It's much more personal and individual than television is, or so many others. And if your programmers, if your operations people understand that the dashboard is now an extension of the audio product, are you giving away tickets today? Is there a secret word today at 3:00? Is there going to be a phone number that you want people to call in with an opinion on a talk show? Are you doing a survey? Do you have a specific guest that's going to be in the studio? You can promote all of that on screen and make it so much more dynamic than just that one dimension that we're used to, or even where it's just station logo and station ID. You can do so much more than that now.
Is this happening in Europe anyway? So far, this sounds, perhaps to those that are watching, and we've got viewers from all over the world, India, Africa, Australia, you name it. This is probably sounding a little bit American-centric, right? We're talking about HD radio and the way it renders on HD radio. How does it apply in Europe, Rudiger? Is there an opportunity there? How does that emerge in the absence of HD radio?
In terms of technology, it should work, of course, because DAB has even better bit rate as HD radio. So bringing the pictures into the car should be an easy task. The other thing is that there's no thing such in Europe, sorry to say that, because every country has its own legislation, what you're allowed to do on the dashboard, what you're not allowed to do. And in countries like Germany, it's even every federal state has the possibility to do that. So that's always an obstacle when you try to scale a technology like that. For example, in Vienna, there was a station 20 years ago. They had a very bright idea to broadcast the traffic news, not via the RDS text, but via the RDS station ID. And you could really, on every cast area, you could see what's the waiting time on the major highway in Vienna. So I thought it was pretty cool. The authorities thought it's pretty illegal, and so they had to stop it. And so that's a point that we have to work on the legislation front. But like Steve put it, if we don't distract the driver, if we bring additional information, if we make a better user experience, we should be able to overcome these obstacles.
Let me just unmute. There's already a question. Zain Derbyshire says, does the station or radio broadly have a responsibility around education for the safety of this technology for drivers? Which you were starting to address, Rudiger, anyway. You were saying that's why there is a regulatory framework around this. You want to speak more to that? As a Tesla driver yourself with an enormous screen?
Yeah, I can show you maybe a short video.
Do you want to talk us through it, or you've muted yourself, Rudiger? So I'm assuming you just want us to watch this.
I was auto-muted because of the video. Okay. That's the reason. I shot myself out by the video. Okay. So the point is that even choosing the station already could be seen as a distraction. Yeah. So if I was like, hey, my station happens to start with an W, for example, and I have to scroll down, and we don't have these W's like the United States, like WHDZ, but still, I mean, we have weird station names as well, and you have to pick them. It's not so easy. Yeah. So navigation by logo is totally important. Having a distinct logo that helps you to stick out is a lot better than to have the driver trying to read all these little things. We have some places in Austria, we got 300 radio stations on DAB and FM, because you could also pick up the ones from Switzerland and Italy. And that really means something for making radio and for navigation as well. So gone are the days where people would discover you by simply pressing up and down the dial and saying, hey, I like the music, I like the jog, oh, they're so cool. And you pass the first test, the ear test, like we all learned it, and then the head test and the stomach test, and like the good old things. These days are gone, because if you're one of, 100 stations, you need a pretty clear product proposal to be able to survive on this dash.
Let's
if I could add something just to that, because Rudiger makes a very good point, and that is, not only are we competing with other radio stations, but we're competing with all these different audio services that are available. So exactly. How radio looks, how we compete, But the issue about traffic safety, we're huge advocates for not adding to the distraction of drivers. So there are a couple of things that you should know. Number one, there are no moving videos associated with this. It's all still images. So you don't have, we will have customers occasionally that will say, can you do a video? No, we won't do that. We have had some companies that want to explore using QR codes. We discourage that. Our technology will pass it, but we discourage it because we don't want people, driving down the road, taking a picture of a QR code with their phone. But radio in the States, and I would imagine this is the same in the European theater, we're just getting radio up to speed with what Apple CarPlay, Spotify, Pandora, and others are already doing in the dashboard. So we're not leapfrogging. We're just getting radio up to that same level of engagement. So a lot of the distracted driver auto safety issues have already been addressed, and we follow the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration codes here to make sure that we don't create additional distraction.
That's a very important point you're making, Steve. So if you're already allowed to have Apple CarPlay, this is no different in terms of the way it renders. It's just that now radio looks just as sexy and cool and made for the screen, just like it does when you put up your CarPlay or your Spotify or whatever it is. We can compete effectively. So that's great. There was a second question that just popped up and just popped out. Let's have it back from Daniel Slentz. What technology syncs visual with audio? Can you all see that question? If you can't, I'll read it out for you. Okay, good. What's the response to that?
So what we do, we cooperate with our client stations and we take the output of the automation system. We're all cloud-based. So the output of the automation system goes into the cloud. We're seeing what the output of the file is in terms of its identification of what's supposed to be there. And we enable the station to change or modify what's coming out of the automation system. So for instance, in the States, you might have McDonald's Buying Co-op of Central Michigan and an ISKI code or a CART code or something that's in the automation system. But you want the display to say McDonald's $1.99 Big Mac. We give the station the ability to modify that text and attach the visualization with it, the logo with it on the equipped vehicles. So it comes out of the automation system. We go to the cloud. That's what we do. We do the modification and do the attachment of the visualization. And then we send it back down to the RDS encoder or to the importer exporter on the HD side or whatever the appropriate technology is at the transmitter site. So we sit between the output of the automation system and the input of the transmission system.
Hopefully that takes care of your question, Daniel. But let's talk a little bit more about what this means going forward. What the next steps? Where did it go to? What's the ceiling here? How much evolution is still headed our way? So that's a question. In fact, let me get to a question prior to that. There are some markets that still don't have DAB+. They don't have HD radio, certainly. They only have RDS. Is there a use case here or a case study of how this can work and enhance the business for the markets that only have RDS?
Yeah, so I want to be very clear. What we have found is the logos are very engaging and look beautiful, but the text really drives a lot of the power of this technology and information. And we've seen this through research as well. So what we really encourage stations to do, start where you are. Even if you're just in a text environment right now with just RDS or just the basic technology, start putting that information on the screen. You may not have the 100% experience, but what is our 100% experience today is going to change very rapidly in the coming years. Start the journey. Get your visual content up. If you're capable of text only, get text up. If you're capable of HD, get that up. If you're going to be soon capable of the DTS auto stage or DAB, whatever the different platforms may be. And that segues into what's next. In the States, what really changed the game for us was when the backup cameras were mandated into the vehicles. And when backup cameras became a part of the vehicle, then the screen theater changed in cars for the US broadcast community. Because now you have color monitors that are much larger. We all remember those original RDS displays that were limited to 8 characters at a time that looked like a readout from a 1983 computer. Now we have something that is much more dynamic. And I think the opportunities are going to be endless for us in terms of how we manage the data, how we present the data, what type of visual engagement we're going to have for people. And interactivity is going to be a huge part of what's coming in the future as well, so that we will have the two-way communication back and forth between radio stations and the consumer.
We've done a lot of talking about it, Steve. You right up front, we played a video that shows how this works. Do you have something that can show us now live,
I do.
for example, how this works?
You
do?
Sure.
That's amazing. Well done.
Yeah, it's amazing that we knew this was here. This is a representation. It's actually a live feed from a radio station in a town of 14,000 people in rural Kentucky. So this is not something that's just being limited to the smallest or the largest markets in the country. But what you can see, we're in the middle of a commercial break at this point in time, and this representation is based on a General Motors display, a 2023 General Motors display. We provide this as a service to our clients. But I'll tell the viewers what they're seeing. On the right side of the screen, you're seeing, for the station's benefit, you're seeing the 8 trailing events that have happened on the station. So on the right-hand side, if we start at the top, there was a commercial in AdSync that Tina referred to earlier for Riley Dental Group, and it had the phone number and find out what Sarah Smith can do. So the commercial was clearly talking about Sarah Smith. She was involved in the commercial in some way, or she was talking about a skill or a service that she provides at that dental clinic. Beneath that, you can see Bluegrass Vein Clinic. There was a promo for the WOVA Wake Up Show. If you have a client that does not buy the technology, if you have a client that says, nah, thank you, I don't want to spend the additional 10%, then while their commercial is playing, the station's image and marketing and message are displayed. So you just saw where it said WOVA Wake Up Show or today's hits, yesterday's favorites, whatever the message is. So now we're into Dua Lipa. So we've just come out of a commercial break. We saw the promo for the morning show, and now we're playing Dua Lipa New Rules. And this is going to be the presentation opportunity that Tina was alluding to earlier, the content partnership. This technology allows you to have two, what we call content partners, that are two different clients and share the messaging in the midst of the music. Starting again with the idea that the listener experience is foremost in this. You're going to notice that the song title, artist, and image displays for a full 90 seconds. We want that image to display for that period of time because that's why listeners like the service. They don't like driving down the road and thinking, who's that song? I wonder who sings that, or having the memory of the album cover. So we give them ample time for them to have that emotional experience with our radio station. They're seeing the artist, they're seeing the name of the song, they're seeing the image of the artist if their vehicle is so equipped. And this stays up for a full 90 seconds. So I can't quite see my timestamps, but at some point in time as we're talking, you're going to see that a message will come up from one of our content partners. And as that content partnership presents itself, it'll stay up for approximately 30 seconds. And then, so it just happened. So there's my hospital, one of my two content partners. The hospital is a local, highly recognized, highly regarded business in the community. We want real quality businesses to be associated with our radio station in this format. This is not selling to the lowest bidder. This is going to some of the best businesses in the community, just like naming rights at a stadium or just like any type of key core partnership. I said at these radio stations, the hospital and a car dealership are the two that we gave the opportunity to. They're exclusive within their product category. So they are, the hospital has the only medical service, and the car dealership is the only car dealership that's eligible for this content partnership. And then you saw what felt very quickly, it goes back and it returns back the display of the song title and artist for the balance of the song. What I think has been most gratifying for me about this is I've had a lot of programmers that typically, they're very protective of their product. I'm an old programmer. I get what it means to be very protective of the listener experience. And I think they have been pleased, if not relieved, that we're doing this in a way that's not quite as intrusive. The technology that was evolving in the States for the longest period of time was one client would appear during the entire commercial break. It might be a law firm, it might be a car dealership, it could have been a hospital, and their message would appear over the top of the whole commercial break. So even if you were running a McDonald's or a building center or a hardware store or a car dealership, the message for the attorney was playing the entire time, or for whomever that sponsor was. Listeners were confused. They thought the radio station wasn't paying attention. They thought the radio station wasn't engaged enough. And this is giving stations a much more engaged view. Now, as you're looking at the monitor, we came back, there was some type of station imaging, or there was a brief talk from the air personalities. And now Ed Sheeran is going to play. And again, you're going to see that this will display for the 90 seconds or so, and then it'll rotate in. And I would expect that the other partnership, which is the automotive dealership, is going to display at that point. So you have seen, if you look down on the bottom right, the next to last where it says Bluegrass Vein Clinic, that's the message that displayed during an auto sync during the commercial break, that displayed for the 30 or 60 seconds of that commercial. And then it went to the dental center. But then now that we're outside the breaks and we're into our regular content, the content partnerships, and this is driving very significant revenue in the States. That's so the fact that we've got something that the programming folks feel relieved with and appreciative of and thankful for, that we're cleaning up what the experience has been, and we're creating a real revenue opportunity for the stations. This product is getting a lot of recognition right now, and we're getting a lot of success with it.
Thanks for that demo. That really helped, I think, clarify for a lot of people who are watching how this actually works practically. Rüdiger, you've been too relaxed. I saw you there looking like you were about to turn a page on a book and so on. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you. What kind of objections can you foresee from programmers as they start thinking about this? Do you think you're going to have some of them say, no, this isn't radio. Why are we doing this extra stuff? Why are we getting into visual? Or do you think they'll embrace this, and in what way?
Not at all. I think that for radio people, everything that's good for the listener experience is great, and radio is far from being just audio. I mean, if we were just audio, we would have been on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I mean, radio is a lot more than that. So that's not the issue. I think the big issue is really to see this as a premium product. Typically, normally in sales teams, you have the issue that you have people that selling the airtime as a premium product and giving away the new stuff as some kind of add-on or stuff, because they're not confident in selling that, because they didn't sell it before, And so that would be my question to both Tina and Steve. How did you train or educate your salespeople to do that, to go up to the client and do this in a confident way? How did you do that?
It was actually pretty easy. I'm thinking of something that just happened last week where we pitched a client a $200,000 program, and they said, do you have that thing that you can see our logo on the screen, and could you do it for $275 if we got that? So it's been easy because the advertisers see it and they want it, and so salespeople are they're opportunists and they're looking for ways to make more money. So the product has been a pretty easy sell for them. It's typically we were always theater of the mind, right? And now we have that visual cue that reinforces their brand. And it's a new technology that advertisers are very, very excited about. It makes them more money. We actually count it toward their digital budget, even though it's a radio product. So that helps them, have their budget achievement, it ticks that box a little bit, if you will. But I think it's really, and to step on the programmers in the room here, I've seen that our programmers have embraced this even more. And we've done things like, we have some sports stations in the US. We've actually decided to put the visual of the score of the game. So if there were a soccer game in Europe, you could have that score. So when you're out doing things with your kids on the weekend and you can't watch that incredible game, you now can look down on your dashboard and see what the score is, as opposed to waiting for the announcer to tell you what it is. we've sold that as a sponsorship as well. So I think I've seen from my purview, great buy-in from both sales and programming. And as I started with at the beginning of this, we've seen millions of dollars in revenue. And I think it's really just, it's just the beginning. I anticipate that to grow year after year.
Omar, there is one thing that, to Rudiger's point, that I want to point out. I think one of the biggest hesitancies that we see lots of times with the programming staff is they have so little time. They are so time pressed they have this job, this job, this job, this job. And so now here's something else they have to be concerned about. So our focus is making it as simple and as easy for them to implement this and to put schedules in. So you don't have to program this every day. You set the schedule for your morning show, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, and it will be there 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, displaying at those times. It's not a daily. It's like anything else. The more you do daily, the fresher it is, the more your unique content is. If you're doing a song of the day or a contest of the day, you may want to do something each day, but you don't have to. And we're really trying to make it. And then there was one brief question that I saw come up about, does this display on other vehicles? The display, the representation I showed was on GM, but yes, it works across all automotive types that have RDS and HD. Now, each vehicle's experience is a little different because each manufacturer's implementation is a little different, but yes, it works as well on other manufacturers, not just General Motors product.
Okay, so that sounds like this is going to do the things that we've always wanted. We're going to have more presence in the car, but the problem with the car and the screen is that the competition has increased dramatically. Are there particular ideas around making sure that we remain relevant? Is there anything about this technology that means that we can be as sexy for Gen Z, who are pretty much growing up on these devices? They're all screen-based. I don't think many of them don't have a habit of listening to the radio. Podcasts, fortunately, might be entering a golden age already in one, which means there is a real opportunity for audio. But what do you see coming up, Steve, in the future of this technology as you continue to evolve it further?
Well,
where are the new opportunities?
The next generation, this is anecdotal. We have not done research on this, but it's an anecdotal thought that the next generation, and I have a 24-year-old son, and his patience of waiting for something that he is an on-demand world. That's if he wants to hear a particular song, he wants to hear it now. The ability to post appointment listening or to put appointment information on the screen does have I've seen a positive impact. So if you've got a studio guest that's coming up at 8:40, the ability to say, Dave Smith today at 8:40, that resonates where you're not making me guess, or you're not making me sit through all kinds of content to get to what I'm really wanting, if you're able to communicate. And, one of the things that Clay, unfortunately, wasn't with us today, but Clay has done a magnificent job with is Odyssey's 1010 Winds in New York City, which is a legendary news station that had been on AM band for years, just moved to FM. And they made Q an integral part of their visual display on their new FM product. So it shows weather in 1 minute. Headlines are next. So as you're watching the screen and you're listening to the 1010 Winds product, they're telling you what the next element is in many cases. So that it's not, I grew up in a time where the randomness of radio was part of the experience. Today's listeners, younger generation, doesn't like random waiting for how long do I have to wait to find out what I want to hear. They're much more on demand. And if they're seeing the designated times or having a sense of when that's going to be delivered, I've seen it have a very positive impact.
You talked earlier also about the fact that this can be seamless, that you can program it so that, like you say, programmers have so much else going on. They're going to say, do I need to add something else to my work flow and my day? Does this integrate into existing software, or you got to work with some, different software? What happens on the back end here?
No, that's part of what we're constantly in development of, working with other companies that have their unique content management and working with APIs so that they can integrate and they don't have to, put it on social media and don't have to put it on Q and don't have to put it to a lot of different places. And that's the phase that we're really actively in now. Generally, what I suggest is it's just keep the monitor open and keep the dashboard open where you can control it and watch your monitor. But one of the things that we hope to introduce in the not so distant future is a producer's module. So if you're a producer that's sitting on a morning show, and if you're there and the morning guys are asking a question, or if it's something that has a poll or anything that is just immediate, that the producer can type in, hit enter, and it immediately displays on the screen. So it's not something that requires 10 minutes advance notice, but our technology really does, enable immediate display. If not immediate, within a matter of seconds, the display reacts to what's being keyed in. And radio is an immediate medium. That's another one of our strengths, that we can be very reactive and respond to those emotions. And that's where we see this growing. But we have to do it in a way that's intuitive and easy for the producer and for the operations people, not something that feels like it's another task getting loaded on top of their already busy day. And we're committed to doing that.
And I would add, from the sales standpoint, we're doing the same thing. So we're integrating the software into our continuity platforms so that a salesperson doesn't always have to scramble to find the logo or how am I syncing this. So it's actually living right in where our audio lives. So we'll save the video file, we'll sync it up. We make it very easy for the salesperson to traffic this to get it executed as well.
Now, I know, Rudiger, you're not in automotive. I understand that, but you drive a Tesla, so we always look up to you,
Thank you for saying that.
You have to tell at some point the story about how this thing just suddenly stopped for no reason when you were going from one city to another. But that's for another day. It's like a computer, right? Sometimes you got to reboot it and it doesn't work. The screens, they're going to keep getting bigger, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if they're getting bigger, but I think they will stay pretty much the size they have right now. If you look, for example, at the Mercedes EQS, that's the one with the most exotic screen because the entire dash is the screen. I think this is pretty much the maximum that you could find nowadays at the car dealers. But however, I think the next thing will be interaction via the screen. Nowadays, everyone is used, if something shiny is on a device, you tap on it. It's like if you have kids and they go to the TV and they tap on it for the first time and they're like, hey, it's broken because it didn't react. And so this tappability, as I could call it, of the dash for radio would be great because we could have audio attribution, for example. We could measure click-through rate on audio. A lot of stuff that we are working on in the podcasting field for years without a really good solution till now could be solved then. So that will be one thing. And the second thing is, of course, we also have to address that linear audio is only a part of the experience in cars. There's a lot of other experiences. You mentioned podcasts before, and of course, our nice friends of Spotify. So for radio, it's important to also think of these things, how to come up with new linear audio, how to negotiate with right holders, how to make non-linear audio, how to produce podcasts, and also to have the back end sorted out, because nowadays many radio stations plan side streams or linear streams like the plan radio stations, which is not very efficient, so to say. So having automatically metadata attributed to your music by artificial intelligence will be important. So it's a lot of stuff that you need, because in the future it won't be enough, even if it's the most brilliant station in the world, to be one of 100 logos on one of, let's say, 4 generic entertainment apps, which might be, for example, TuneIn or podcast app or whatever. Here you got it. Yeah, that's the EQS. Thank you for showing. So that's what I call a big screen, right? And of course, Mercedes EQS is not even in my country, it's not the standard car that people would buy because it's utterly expensive. But we all know that stuff that happens in the Mercedes S-Class makes its way down the ranks to the E-Class and so on, and will be in the entire marketplace in a few years. And these things are not so expensive to build, actually. They look very shiny, but it's not that hard to put a screen in a car. And for the radio stations, a big obstacle is that till now every auto manufacturer wants to do his own stuff. So having your experience right on all the car manufacturers, car brands, that's really hard. So you need companies to help you in that, because you cannot solve that alone. It's a too big business that changes too fast. And as long as the automotive industry wants to differentiate itself by brand, by the way of the in-car experience, which seems important to them, we will have to live with that. So companies that help you in that are absolutely necessary.
Omar, if I could add, and every time Rudiger says something, he brings up a point that I want to reinforce because he's spot on with it. But two things that I would say. We tell people there's so much variety in the way different car manufacturers, to Rudiger's point, everybody wanted to have their own unique experience. Every car manufacturer wanted to have their own unique experience. We can't change the way the vehicle is equipped. How the vehicle is equipped is how the vehicle is equipped. But we can give that vehicle the best experience possible the way they're equipped. If they just have RDS, we can't convert that to HD. If they have HD without visuals, we can't all of a sudden start that. But whatever their vehicle is equipped, how it's equipped, we can give them the best experience possible. And, so many times I have people that think, oh my gosh, if I can just get song title and artist established, that's the holy grail. Well, that's just the beginning. And Rudiger's point about the future, about all the metadata. And that's why we have such a great relationship with the Xperi DTS folks, because their auto stage technology is going to enable radio stations to present so much more interactive, so much more dynamic. I just saw it over the weekend on a Mercedes here in the States. It's going to provide such an opportunity. And what Q's job is to continue providing the content and filling that pipeline. So as radio evolves, radio stations can focus on their external product and not be trapped trying to say, okay, how do I know what album this came from? Or how do I know who wrote this song? Or whatever the metadata points would be. But make it as seamless and as easy for radio broadcasters to continue to meet that increasing demand. The interactive capabilities are going to be there. I'll say what I said earlier. Take the first step and trust that there are companies out there that will help you take the next step and the next step and the next step. Don't feel like you've got to get to perfection immediately. Just get involved and start putting metadata up on the screen. And that's what we're here for. That's what Xperi DTS is there for. It's really to provide radio broadcasters and their listeners an entirely different experience opportunity than they've ever heard before.
Steve, we're going to give people a chance to watch a bit more about how Q works. So we're going to play a little bit more of a video. I wonder if you want to lead into that. Do you want to just take us into it?
Yes, we opened this segment this morning with a 90-second video that we have provided to our clients. This is how we suggest clients, our stations, introduce the technology to their advertising customers. It explains what the product is in a way that whets the appetite for those advertisers and says, yes, I'd like to be a part of that. And after the station personnel, the sales rep qualifies the client, then there's another 75-second video of best practices. And what this addresses is, don't put too much copy on the screen. Understand how the visuals work together. Understand that it's a broadcast technology. If you're in a parking structure or if you're on the backside of a mountain range, it's going to be impacted just like your FM signal is going to be impacted because we're riding right along on that. And it also addresses the dashboard. We can't change the way a vehicle looks, but we can give it the best experience. Because what we want is the advertiser and the client to have the right expectations about what this technology is when they start using it. As I tell people, Wi-Fi goes out, Bluetooth goes out, cell phones go out. Every once in a while, your RDS display may drop because of, a loss of signal or some type of signal issue. We just want people to understand that. But if you'd like to play the video, it's fairly short and it gives people an opportunity to understand how this technology works.
Yeah, it might also lead to more questions. Let's have a look at it.
A bit of a dead roll here, so it'll jump in just a moment.
We're excited you want to learn more about how Q can help your business. Let's review how you can be most successful with Q. Remember, the power is in the text. Just like on highway billboards, simple, short, and direct wording works best. Match the message to on-air copy. Be brief and use mixed case, not all caps, which can come across as yelling. You will find automotive radio displays vary widely. While we can't change how a vehicle is equipped, Q sends the same information to each receiver to ensure they have the best experience possible. Text messages load rapidly, but logos can take a few seconds to appear. Logos will only display in the 20% of vehicles equipped with advanced HD receivers. Just like Bluetooth, cell phones, and radio signals, service may be affected by the distance to the tower or other obstructions too. Our station uses Q for a positive listener experience. And the benefit of visual reinforcement for your radio ads. Through Q, our station now offers a powerful and effective advertising technology to you. And with these simple tips and best practices, your business will get maximum impact and return on your investment. Let's get started. We're excited about putting Q to work for you.
There you go.
Yeah, that pretty much explains it. I don't know if there are any more questions, and if there are, from those of you that are watching, please feel free to ask them. Unless, of course, we've just done a brilliant job of covering it all. Well, Daniel doesn't think so. He's got one. We'll be curious to see how the division between radio and TV blurs if ATSC TV lands on the dashboard with radio. Wants to hear your thoughts on that.
I'll offer, ATSC.
Yeah, go for it.
ATSC 3 is going to become a reality, and there is going to be service, and it's going to be deployed, and then, it's another competitor that's coming into the dashboard that will have content. I think radio is in a great incumbent position. We have that strong relationship. If we take care of our business and stay connected to our local communities, I think we have a great business model. If we just try to be another music service, because music is generally a commodity now, as opposed to being the bread and butter of the radio industry that it was for many years, I think we're going to have challenges, not just from that technology, but it's just another introduction of all medias are blurring. Heck, we've got, radio now has the opportunity to do visual. So I would turn it backward, and I would say to the folks that have done TV for years, now radio is no longer just in audio. So we're all blurring, and I welcome the competition, but content is going to ultimately be the victor.
Love that sentiment, Steve. I think you're 100% right to say we shouldn't be worrying about what's looking over our shoulders. They should be looking over their shoulders and saying, oh, these radio guys are doing more of this and that, and they're coming for us. This is good to hear.
I got into radio when I was 14 years old. I love this business. I would rather be in the radio business than anything in the world. I'm ready to start punching back a little bit. I'm ready, instead of just protecting and being up against in the corner doing the rope-a-dope, I'm ready for radio to have some great success stories. And so when I hear Tina talking about the success that they're having, that I'm ready to take some money away from some other sectors instead of watching the radio budget diminish.
Yes, and of course, we go right back to the core of what made this medium so incredible is the talent that you have, and the talent there are, if they're brilliant, they're going to shine through. People are going to want to hear what's going on and constantly keep listening because, firstly, they get what's happening in their communities. I mean, we know some of the things. Yeah, as Daniel says now, content is king. He's 100% right. That's the right point. Rudiger, as the strategy officer at Chronahit, when are you getting on board?
I don't know yet, because it depends on various things. It depends, of course, on our legislation, number one. And the second thing it depends is on our sales team, because they have to be confident to sell that. But I think it's a very, very nice and shiny product. As a visual product, it's also easier to present, like audio spots, which was always a big obstacle. Audio spots always sound so bad on a PowerPoint. I don't know why. So that's nice, and I'm pretty sure it would work in Europe. The issue is that every country, I think, has their own little legal obstacles, but I think you could also work around that, because Google and Apple also managed to do that, and they are legal in all countries in Europe. So if you stay inside the box that they are offering, you should be fine. The good thing is that autonomous driving isn't coming as fast as we know. So audio with a nice glanceability added, which is pretty much the approach that radio has to the dash, will be better than the pure TV experience for many years to come, because autonomous driving will, as Mr. Musk also has to see, take a little longer than expected.
Yeah, that's 100% right. Tina, new opportunities in sales that you feel will emerge? I mean, at some point, Rudiger mentioned it earlier, there's got to be some interactivity. There's also going to be voice activation, surely, because that's even less, less distracting at the point that you call up stuff that you want to hear, or the next news bulletin, when's it happening, or whatever it is. Where do you see that?
I mean, I think in an ideal world, as everyone has mentioned on this call, that, it could be a touch to buy. It could be a voice to buy. It could be, now get me directions to Dunkin' Donuts after I've seen that ad, and have that all linked in. Advertisers love the new shiny toy. So what I would say to Rudiger is, like, your salespeople will embrace this. Like, it's something new that an advertiser hasn't seen. As I started this meeting with, is we're asking, our advertisers are asking us for it, which is really, it gets back to the punching back, where we don't have to do as much outreach on this as we do traditional radio. It's people coming in and saying, I saw my competitor's logo. Like, how do I get that same? How do I get that same technology? How do I become part of that? Which for salespeople, it's very, it's enticing to have an advertiser ask you for something as opposed to going out and selling them something. So, I definitely see it will evolve with technology, with touch, with voice. But right now it's a new technology that's being vastly embraced by my sales team.
And Steve, do you think that at a point FM tuners are gone? Was that very controversial? Maybe it isn't. I don't think it is that controversial.
No, I don't think it's. I would not characterize it as controversial, because I think anybody that cares about our business has to ask that question. But I don't think it'll be in my lifetime, and I hope I've got a real good long life ahead of me. I'm checking out next week. So having been at the National Association of Broadcasters and studied this, Rudiger made the point a few minutes ago. 3 years ago, the autonomous car, people were going to be riding around in the back of cars within 5 years. And we know that idea peaked, and there's going to be a lot of autonomous capability, but it's going to have a much slower deployment. But here's what I would say to broadcasters, and Q does this. We deploy this on any technology you have. So if you're streaming, you have the ability to deploy this. If you're going through an app, you have the ability to deploy this. So while it is an over-the-air broadcast product at its core, I absolutely believe that radio broadcasters have to be on every platform, putting their product to where the consumer wants it. It's not just a case of where we particularly want it. But in the automobile, I think that the FM tuner has a long life in the automobile. I think what the HD radio folks with Xperi and DTS are doing to reinvigorate that is really adding a lot of life to the broadcast cycle in the States, and I would imagine the same as in Europe, because the auto industry likes new technology that doesn't eat up a lot of bandwidth. It's good, efficient deployment of entertainment and content through the over-the-air technology, and you can't argue with the economics of that. It's very, very cost-effective to deploy.
Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. That was a great discussion. We learned so much from this particular discussion about how the in-dash display is changing, and most importantly, what content and revenue opportunities are emerging. Q are right at the forefront of that. Rudiger Landgraf, Krone Hit Vienna, Steve Newberry, the CEO of Q, Tina Murley, the Chief Revenue Officer of Beasley Media Group in the US. Thank you very much for your time, for your wisdom today, explaining all of this and giving us these insights. And you can catch these videos, for those of you who missed this or missed parts of it or want to watch it again. It's going to be on redtech.pro. It's on YouTube. We'll keep posting links on the RedTech newsletters as well. And stay with us for the rest of Radio Week 2023 every day between 1400 and 1500 Central European Time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.